Imagine God giving you instructions on what to do in your life so that you would be prosperous. This is what happened to the woman with the oil. In 2 Kings, the 4th chapter, in the 7th verse, it says that the man of God told her to go and pay her debt and live off the rest. Now, debt can be looked at two ways, okay? Number one, negative or positive. Well, in either case, God allows it. That's what I want to get to you. And if God allows the debt, then guess what? He can get you through the debt. Most people, when they speak to you about a situation, many times it's not something that just happened. It was perpetuating from the past all the way up until it got to a point where you feel like they can't control it. And that sometimes becomes a real situation. But in this situation, the woman with the oil did three things I thought were very significant. In 2 Kings, the 4th chapter, in the 7th verse, it says that the man of God told her to go and pay her debt and live off the rest. If you don't think this is still happening today, maybe you want to study things out a little bit closer and pay attention to me, okay? There's three things I want to point out in this particular verse. Number one, the woman with the situation went to the man of God, okay? She went to the man of God, and God gave her instructions. Number two, she obeyed the instructions. And number three, God released her after he gave the instruction, whereas she could go on and live without depending on God. You see, God don't want you depending on the same thing over and over. He wants you to follow the instructions and then move forward to the next situation. So let's look at it. Number one, as we remember throughout the 3 series that we've been teaching, that the woman with the oil had a debt that she owed to a certain creditor. And if she didn't pay that debt, then that creditor was going to take her sons, okay? And back then, what a lot of people don't understand, and we don't often hear in church, is that people of God were still in debt. Now, debt can be looked at two ways, okay? It can be looked at two ways. Number one, negative or positive. Well, in either case, God allows it. That's what I want to get to you. And if God allows the debt, then guess what? He can get you through the debt. Oh, I said a lot right there. Now, think about this. The woman did not go to the creditors. She didn't go to her friends. She went to the man of God to ask, what shall she do? And he told her, okay, by the time we make it to verse 7, she has carried out everything that God told her to do through the man of God. Okay. Now, once she did that, the man of God told her to go and live off the rest. Okay. He said, pay your debt and then go and live off the rest. So she turns around and she does what the man of God tells her. Remember this, God is always wanting to straighten out our situations and our circumstances. God is always willing to do what we need done. And thank God today we can have direct communication with God if we're sensitive enough to hear the voice of God, okay? And that's another subject within itself. Also, people of God that are sincere, pure-hearted, can speak just like the prophet spoke into the woman with the oil's life and said, this is what's going on. Yes, God gives people that are very sensitive to his spirit and to his voice the ability to speak into other individuals' lives. I'm talking about in cleanliness, not old dirty hands, okay, but in cleanliness, and give instructions and guidance. And that's only if they're ready. Now, remember, the woman with the oil, she was ready for an answer. Why was she ready for an answer? Because she was in desperation of the fact that her sons were getting ready to be taken into slavery because of the lack of paying a debt, okay, that the father had left. And you got to understand in that story, the father was one of the prophets to the Elijah, okay? He was one of the prophets. And so therefore, he still had debt. He still had to live, take care of his family as he did ministry, like so many people today. Sometimes we try to take modern day and disassociate it with the past, okay? You have to remember God allowed debt even in the past. And so today, people will almost make you feel like debt is the worst thing in the world, but it's not, depending on the situation. Well, as I said earlier, she went to the prophet, she went to the man of God, and he told her what to do. This is modern day, okay? This is modern day market ministry, okay? People take on debt for whatever reason to get through whatever they need to get through. People take on debt just to be able to stay out of poverty, okay? Debt can be looked at as a means of staying out of poverty, okay? So God has allowed debt for centuries, okay? Let's look at that. That's very, very, very uh, um, wise, and that's very understandable. Now, let's look at another situation that took place. As he began to tell her, go and, pay your debt, she obeyed, okay? What you have to do, you have to learn to obey God. You have to learn to do what God tells you to do in whatever matters you are facing in life. If the Spirit of God tells you, that little unction that you get in your spirit that says, go and do this or go and do that. And then when we miss it, we turn around and we say, wow, I knew it, something told me. Yeah, we know what that was. That was the Spirit telling you to go do a certain thing that you should have made up your mind to go do and obey God in that. Well, what if it seemed like it was the wrong thing that, that's no, God doesn't operate like that. That's not God giving you a bad spirit or a bad idea to go do or harm somebody. Usually when you get that type of unction or a nudge in your spirit, what that really tells you to do is to go carry out a certain situation that would be beneficial for someone else or perhaps to you. Okay? So you have to obey, and that's what she did. She went and did exactly what she needed that money for. She went and did it. So many times people get out of a situation. God will totally deliver them. God would give them the money, give them the resources, do whatever need to be done, and they still won't go take care of what needs to be done. And you say, well, why is that, Pastor? That is because there's something underlining in their character, okay? There's something underlining in their character as to why they won't go and pay their debt and do what they were supposed to do. So here they are with the money. Then once they spend the money, okay, then all of a sudden, they're upset. They're back at square one and they're saying, Lord, help me, please. But remember something. When God delivers you from something, okay, remember this, and he tells you to go do it, and you do it. And it may seem hard, okay? I don't think, it was hard for the woman, okay, because she was devout. She trusted God. She trusted the man of God. So she was going to do everything that the Lord told her to do, okay, because she believed. Now, you have to believe, and you have to remember, when people do not go do what God tells them to do, it simply means they don't believe. And you have to believe what God is saying and doing in your life at all times. So obeying him and paying that debt. Now that's number 2. She did exactly what God told her to do. Okay, she went and paid the creditor. We don't know how much and how less or what she was coming up short on or what it was going to cost her. But she did what God told her to do. And a lot of times that's all you can do is exactly what God tells you to do. Some people, they'll sit right there. God is blessing them, allowing them to be restored, allowing them to be delivered, allowing them to accomplish things that normally they would not have accomplished, and supernaturally, they knew that it was God in their life. And then they'll turn around and forfeit it by not obeying. And that happens so many times in the Christian's life, or even in believers' life, or just in general with people. And recognizing when God is delivering you and when God is allowing you to go through what you need to go through is very, very important. It is very important that you recognize what God is doing in your life. And so these things become very, very, very significant as it relates to us obeying God. Just obey God. I don't care what your situation is. I don't care what you're facing. Obey God and watch the outcome, especially when you know deep down. And sometimes you can tell when it's God so deep because it feels almost like it hurts to carry it out. Okay? Sometimes it feels like it hurts. Sometimes, and you be in your mind, be just going between this and be going between that, just like Apostle Paul said, "Oh, wretched man am I." He want to do good, but, he forever doing the wrong thing. And when he wants to do wrong, he goes back and he does right. Well, sometimes we get stuck in that place and we have to turn around and trust God for everything. Are you following me? Okay. So do what God tells you, because that's what she did. She did what God told her to do. Now, here's the third one that I told you I was going to talk about. Number one, she went to the man of God. Number two, she did what he told her. But here's the part that's really going to get you. When God gives you the solution to something, think about that. He gave her the solution and the finish end to the matter. He gave it to her. When God gives you that, you must remember that God is not going to allow that dependency of instructions to perpetuate on and on and on. He's going to give you that solution, and he's going to tell you what to do in the matter, and he's going to pull back. Now, that's the part we miss, okay? In other words, we'll turn around. He gave you the money. Then you turn around, not pay it, and then turn around and go and say, okay, what am I going to do now? And he's saying, wait a minute now. If you would have done what I told you to do, I would have shown you how to get out of the situation, or I would have given you the solution to that whole matter. All because the woman with the oil did everything that God told her, she got the solution. She got the final outcome. And I believe that's what we're looking for. And you say, well, Pastor or Solomon, what are you saying? What's the final outcome? It was simple. It was in the scriptures. Go and live off the rest. Say what? That was left over? Yes. Even though she paid her bills and did all that she did, she still had leftovers. Okay? In other words, this matter you going through, sister, it's a wrap. Now go live off the rest of this oil. And it put her in business. Okay? She had a skill set that produced income, fed her family. No matter how you look at it, she fed her family, took care of her family. The boys didn't have to go in slavery. And a lot of times you have to stop and pay attention to that. That number one, God will give you the solution. If you would just follow his instructions all the way out, he will take care of you no matter what. You have to determine in your mind and in your heart that you're going to do exactly what God tells you. You can't come to Solomon and say, the Lord doing me like this and the Lord doing me like that. Okay, explain to me what's happening. Okay, then explain to me your part in the matter. Okay, once you identify your part in the matter, and did you obey God in the matter, whether it came through prayer, your own prayer life, your own logics of reasoning, which is very spiritual, okay? Or did the baby tell you, well, mama, don't you need to do this? Or daddy, don't you need to do this? Did one of them tell you and you decided to ignore, and then you ask yourself, what am I going to do? Most people, when they speak to you about a situation, many times it's not something that just happened. Okay? It was perpetuating from the past all the way up until it got to a point where you feel like they can't control it. And that sometimes becomes a real situation. That becomes a real problem. But in this situation, the woman with the oil did three things I thought were very significant. Number one, she went to the man of God. Number two, she obeyed the instruction. And number three, she got her solution and God released her. And she became so prosperous out of that and lived to be a businesswoman out of that the rest of her days. God would tune you up. God would put your skill sets together out of your worst moments. And that's what you have to look at. God would tune you up. He would put you together. He would make sure everything is tight. But sometimes it comes in your worst moments. And that's what happened with the woman with the issue of blood. Hey, that's all I got for now. Be blessed.